Okay, so we're going to make a subassembly in this. A subassembly is basically just a group of parts that goes into a bigger assembly later. It's exactly the same as an assembly, except you can drop the whole subassembly in instead of dropping one part at a time. So like we've got this is called a truck assembly. It's basically the suspension and the axle of a skateboard. We have one of these on both sides, so it makes sense to make a subassembly in there, and you can just drop it in twice instead of dropping in all the individual parts. Alright, so to make an assembly is the first one we've done. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's pretty easy. So what I want you to do right off the bat is you go to File. Okay, I'm leaving this one open, so maybe it'll help me grab that later, since this is the base part that everything's attached to anyway. File, hover over New, and pick Assembly. Okay, hit OK. So while we're waiting for that, usually you're going to want to bring it. The first part you're going to want to bring in, a big thing with a subassembly, any assembly, is you have to lock the part down at the first part down at the origin. That part is usually the main part that everything else is kind of connected to, or the bottom part in some cases. Okay. So once you're in assembly, there's a couple things here. You can build all these parts from an assembly. So if you got one part that's kind of a lot like another one, I'd create and make the first part, and then I'd use that part to make the rest of them. Like a bearing assembly would be a lot like that. A lot of the diameters would be very similar. It might just be a few thousandths off, and you could add that to it, and it would be that way. If you change the size of the bearing, the plate would automatically generate. Okay, so there's things like that where you do from the, I think it's called the top down, where you'd basically design all the parts from inside the assembly. But today, especially learning from the beginning, we're going to just place parts. So I'm going to pick place here and pick place. There is a content center that has nuts and bolts in, which we'll learn about that next time. So hit place. And it's going to hopefully bring you to the place where you have all your parts. If it doesn't, you'll have to go find that place. Now it's very important that you save this assembly to the same location as these parts. And this is the first subassembly we save. From now on, when you save that, all these parts and the subassembly need to be locked together in one file folder. So if you're saving it up to like on a net somewhere, you will have to take all these files, right click on them in Explorer, okay, File Explorer, and zip them together into one file folder, and then unzip them later to work on them. Because if you don't do that, you'll have to manually find every one of these parts for the subassembly, which is kind of a pain. It's not undoable, but it's definitely a pain. Okay, so you want to keep all these files together. That's kind of the main point, because it is looking for these files. All right, so it says place component. First one is always the most important. So I think we did the hanger was there, so the base plate. Okay, so we want to find base plate, pick it, and that is got pretty much everything's connected to that thing. It isn't the bottom. Notice the rubber gasket's below it, but it's got a lot more things connected to it. That's why I'm picking it. Okay, and we hit open. Okay, now don't place it somewhere. That is what a mistake a lot of people make on it. You do it on the rest of them, but not on this one. Okay, what we want to do is we want to right click and pick place grounded at origin. It's very, very, very important. It's going to lock that thing down, and it basically doesn't let it move. Okay, fully constrains it. Now we only got one of these. If we had more, I'd put some more in here, but we only got one. So I'm going to hit escape now. Okay, now let's go ahead and place all the rest of them. Okay, so I go to place, and there's a little trick to use on the rest of them. Hold down the control key and pick all the rest of them. Make sure you don't pick base plate again. So I picked it again to unpick it. Okay. Okay, so I've got all 5 of them. Do I have 2 of anything? Yeah, I'm going to have a whole. It looks like I've got 2 of these. Even if it's not shown correctly. Oh, it is shown correctly. Good. Number 4. Yeah, I do have 2 of these bushings. You can't see it. You can see it on this view, but there's one on top and bottom of that. Everything else is just one of. Okay. And normally I'd tell you to put all the bolts in the subassembly too, but the bolts are in the library, which if it's not connected to the network, they get lost. So it's a good idea to put the bolts in last here. Now, if you had this at work or at home, you would put all the bolts from the content library. We'd place them from the library here in at the same time. Okay, but when you're running off networks, that doesn't work because they get lost. So So we'll do them last when we do the whole cart later. Alright. So once you get that done, you just hit open. And I don't know, just drop them anywhere. Not too far away so you can get them. Hit escape. And one more time do it. Place, place. And we need that bushing, number 4. It's just called a bushing. We need one more of them. Bring that in there. And get all our parts. Okay, I think I already put one of these in there, so I'm going to escape. How many did I put in there now? Probably got 3 of them. Delete that one out of there. Okay, okay, so now we got to attach all these parts to our base plate because that one's locked down. All right. You kind of look over here and see which one goes in there first. Well, this one's nice and easy, that bottom one. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to lock enough faces or holes together. Imagine that if I had locked this face with this face parallel, and then this face with this face parallel, and then this bottom face with the bottom face parallel, then this thing cannot ever move, okay? And I can also use some of the holes to lock together, so there's several options there. That's to lock things together. If, like, say I put a bolt through 2 of these holes and then put these 2 faces together, it would be basically locked together. So they tried to write the program so it's similar to what you do in the real world. Okay, this thing is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which face you put first. So we're going to pick constrain up there on your ribbon. And I'm going to do this little rubber gasket first. So I'm going to pick this base plate first. That face, see the arrow? It's showing me which face it's on. If I hover too long, it basically gives me more than one option. So I'm going to pick that face, and now I'm going to pick this face. And since they're symmetrical, it doesn't matter which one. And then I've got a couple things going on here. This one means, this little one says they're mated. That means they're opposing, the faces are opposing, which they are, and which is what I want. If I want them to be parallel, I'd pick flush, which you do that sometimes too. You can also tell it an offset distance, which we don't want. This is an exploded view, which we'll learn about later. So everything's good on that. I don't want to change anything else, okay? So I hit apply. All right? Now it stays open, okay? Now I'm going to lock some holes together. And you got to make sure you lock holes that work. So I can't lock this hole with this hole and spin it, because then this one would be out here somewhere. And if I put this one over here, well, this black piece is way over here. So look at it like if I put a bolt through this thing, which holes would have to line up? Okay, well, this one. And when you're going for cylinders, you're trying to get, I don't know if it's showing up very good, the graphics aren't looking the best. You're not trying to get a point, you're trying to get like a, there, that center line. This one's so short it's hard to see. See that center line? You're trying to get that, okay? So I'm going to pick this center line, and I can't pick that hole because that hole would be wrong. If I pick that one, it's not going to, I'm never going to get these other ones lined up because I got a bolt in the wrong spot. So which one would it be? It would be this one right here, right? So see, I've got that cylinder. You can see both sides of it, so that means I've got it. So I hung over it too long, it gives me the axis thing. So I pick that, okay? So now it lined that one up. And you can probably guess which one I ought to do next, right? It's going to be this one. I got to hit apply. Okay, and now I'm going to get this cylinder, okay? I can't see that other one, so I'm going to basically either use my view cube to spin or manually spin. And it's a little tricky. I want to do this one next. Where would I put my bolt in next? Okay, now notice I picked the right place and it locked it down. I hit apply. Now once in a while you do need to use these items, whether they're aligned or opposed, okay? But we picked it right and we didn't have to use any of those. Okay, so I lined 2 faces, and now I lined where I'm putting my bolts through these 2 holes, and now that thing's fully locked down. Because just like in the real world, those 2 faces are matching, and there's a bolt in both of them. There's no way that thing's moving. Okay. All right, so that first one's done. Let's go on to the next one. All right, we're going to keep working our way up, and I think it's that little bushing, the truck bushing there. So we'll do it next. It is, if you see the top of that, there's actually a bolt head that goes in there that locks this thing all down. So make sure the hole is facing up on it when you bring it in, okay? Just from past experience. So where's that thing at? So I'm going to put the bottom. It's probably going to be buried in there into the metal. In reality it wouldn't be, but that's okay. We're going to let it be buried, okay? It might be with this clamped down tight, but so I'm going to pick on this face right there with the hole facing me. I gotta quit hovering because then it changes. So make sure you pick the face and not the cylinder. We're picking this face. See the little arrow pointing up? That means you got the face. Okay. And I know it's going to be parallel because it's not going to be opposing. See how it's going to be parallel with this face? I'm going to pick the parallel one here, the flush. Okay, make sure you pick flush in the setting there. And now go over here and see that bigger hole that it's going to go in? Pick that face that it would be flush to. Okay. Now it doesn't look like it moved, but it is actually moving somewhere. It's way over here, but it's in the right spot, and hit apply. If you look at a view here, you can see these two are actually right in line. If you could, it's hard to see that, but they are. Okay, I could actually get out of this and move it, and it would actually stay in line with that all the time. Okay, because that is locked down. Now what I'm going to do is grab those two cylinders, and I got this thing. So it keeps trying to get cylinder now. So I got to go back to mate. Now I can get, since I went back to mate, now I can get the cylinder. Notice I'm getting the, and you can pick any one of these cylinders as long as I'm getting the face of the cylinder. It's going to give me the hidden line on there. I know I got it. Okay, so I picked that. And there's only one cylinder you can pick on this one, that one. So I picked that. It should lock down, I'm hoping. Hit apply. And it's giving me an error, so I'll edit the relationship. And probably got to switch it over to aligned. Try that. Yep, so aligned did it. Now hit apply. Okay, and that one's locked down. Yeah, it's too deep in there. We could stick it out. We could go back into that one and maybe have it stick out a 1/16 with that distance, and that would work too. Either way, I'm going to really be okay with this. It's just a bushing. Lets it get a little bit of movement in there. All right, that one's done. Next thing, I guess probably the rubber bush, the rubber bushing that's on the back side of this one right here. Okay, so we'll do him next. And it's pretty easy. We're on oppose, so pick on this face here, okay, of the rubber bushing. And this face, same face we picked up for the last one, except this one is opposed or mated. So pick on that. Okay. And they actually lined up halfway decent this time. If you can't see it, as long as you pick them right, it's still working. Hit apply. Okay, got to remember to hit apply. Half time I forget to hit apply, and then it doesn't actually happen. Okay. Okay, then we want to pick on this cylinder and this cylinder. I think I waited too long again. Hit apply. And remember to align that time. That's what I did last time, so it worked. Okay. Okay, so that's in the right spot. Okay, so we've got that one in, and it's locked down. Okay. Okay, the next one we're going to do, it looks like we're to the hanger now. The hanger is on the face of that bushing, okay? This hole here, to get into the right screen here. So this face right here sits on that bushing and gets clamped to it basically, and that's how your suspension works. And the cylinders are together, okay? It's going to want to rotate too, but hopefully this bolt will lock that down. We can spin it around later. So one step at a time. So let's do this face, okay, with the face of that bushing. There we go. And it is opposed, so I hit apply, okay. And now we're going to have to do cylinders. Now I can't see the cylinder, so I'll show you a little trick here. I'm going to hit cancel, and I'm going to drag that thing out of there so I can see my two cylinders that need to align. And then I go back to constrain, and now I hit the cylinder. And this, either this cylinder or this cylinder, doesn't make any difference. They're all the same line. And I'm probably going to have to hit a line on there, but we'll see if it'll let me. It did work, so I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so I'm going to hit cancel or X out of this, get out of this. And now I'm going to move this thing around a little bit, make sure it's actually working. Something is seriously wrong. Okay, I lied to you. This cylinder goes on this other hole, because you can see the metals are interfering. So there's a big mistake, right? So a couple things you can do here. You can go back here and you can kind of redefine these, but since I just did them, I'm going to undo, okay? If I was way down the line and I noticed it was wrong, then I'd try to basically edit these mates, okay? Notice they're in the browser under the part I just did. But since I just did, it's easier just to undo them. Okay. Probably one more. Okay, I'm going to hit escape and make sure this is still locked down there. Boy, I messed this up big. This thing goes on the other one too, so I got to undo quite a bit. Probably start the whole video over, right? Okay, try again. Constrain. we're going to go the fast method this time, right? And I'm going to pick this face and the right face this time, which is the opposite side of that, which is right here, okay? Apply, and this cylinder and that cylinder, apply, okay? And then this face and that face, apply. And I can't see it again, so I got to cancel out of there. I could probably do it if I worked at it hard enough, but it's just not worth it. Constrain that cylinder and this cylinder. Apply. Now cancel out and let's see what we got going on here. So it's always a good idea to check your work so you don't make errors. Yeah, that fits a lot better. I'm not having metal. And notice I can spin it around. It looks like it's going to work real nice. Okay. Okay. Alright, so we were going to basically add the other rubber grommet and do the other face of that. Okay. So constrain that face to this face and apply. And this cylinder to this cylinder. Make sure you're getting that axis. Apply. If you get the error, remember sometimes you have to hit a line there. Okay, so that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my axle in there while I'm there. So this cylinder with this cylinder, apply. And I'm going to move it around a little bit so I can see. Well, I actually can see it. You might need to drag it around so you can see it. See it's getting kind of all over the place here, but it can move now in multiple directions. I need to start lining some things up. So this hole needs to be aligned with that hole. So I'm going to constrain this cylinder with this cylinder. So if I did put a bolt in there, that would pretty much lock those down. Okay, so now that one can't move. Escape. Okay, I'm going to make the sub-assembly drawing right now to kind of show you how to do balloons and bill of material. Typically there'd be no dimensions on a sub-assembly drawing. Okay, so first thing we got to do is bring in our part. So I go to base just like you normally would. Okay, and it brings it in and spin it around to the kind of one you want. You can always hide this view later. Okay, and I'm going to put my 3D view, which is the main one I want here. Okay, I noticed it's on D size. I should have switched it to C size. I'll do that here in a second. Now hit OK. And switch it on the sheet to edit sheet to C size. Hit OK. Move things around so they fit. I want to make this one show hidden lines, which is not really normal, but I want to be able to, you can't see that bottom bushing, so I want to be able to see that. So I go to hidden here and I hit OK. Alright. And then this one I make 3D as usual. Double clicking on it. And 3D. There we go. Okay. And now I'm going to create my bill of material first. Okay. And this is all pretty easy stuff. We go to annotate. Parts list. And select view. Just pick a view like that one. Hit OK. It's real simple. All the defaults are usually right. Drop it into the corner. I don't want that description column because I didn't put anything in the description of the parts, so nothing showing up. So I'm going to just double click on that. Go over here to column chooser on the left. Take the description and remove it. Hit OK. Alright. I get a nice, hit OK again. I get a nice bill of material. Now the balloons is just about as easy. Auto balloon, there's a couple little tricks to it though. Once you select a view, then you got to hit the select placement button or it won't work. Oh, you got to select components first, sorry. I'm window them all. Right, and it's not going to get the ones it can't see, which you can't see that bottom bushing. So select placement button. I usually put them all around like that. And notice they're kind of all over the place. Hit OK. Now just kind of move them with your grip so they look a little more professional. A little bit more in a standard order. Okay. Closer together when there's only a few of them like this maybe. And you can do horizontal or vertical too. Sometimes that looks better for the all when I pick the placement. Notice it didn't get the bottom bushing. It's missing number 6. Okay, truck bushing. But that is visible down here, so I'm going to do a manual one. Balloon. Okay. And I could do a section view so you wouldn't have to do a hidden line, but to this time frame I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to pick a spot for it, right click and continue. And that one's done. And now I've got all 6 of them in there. Use iProperties to update your name and so forth. Add any notes that are in there. Not a lot of notes in this one, and that's the one you turn in when you get your subassembly done. Make sure you do this before you log off, just so it doesn't, if in case it loses the position. Make sure all these parts are saved in the same file folder. Okay. Alright, I'm going to save this real quick. So just so you know how to save those, I'll show you real quick. So if you got a file folder here, trying to get it opened up, and I go to those parts. So what you have to do here, so it doesn't lose its location, if you're saving like on the cloud, like up to the locker or something like that, because you're using this one of the school's networks and you're not saving on a U drive or an S drive or a thumb drive, you basically have to pick all those parts. Okay, don't worry about the temps, and then you right click and you need to zip them together into a folder, and then you unzip that to work on it more. Okay, because that'll finish what you started, but wouldn't be needing these later, so you want to keep them in the same folder all the time. Okay, so if you put it on a cloud, you got to zip them and unzip them. Either that or the assembly will lose location of the parts, and the drawings will lose location of parts, and you have to hit the find button on it, which is pretty tricky. Okay, alright, and I can help you with that if you run into any problems. Okay, send me an email if you have any problems. That's the end of the video. We'll get into the template next week if you're still having troubles with that.